Good evening and welcome to the channel. Now, in a previous video, we were discussing the value of gold and how it is in general rising. And I did want to take some time to discuss the historical and technological aspects of gilding in watchmaking. And this is rather fascinating as a subject. Now, I would like to discuss two general technological processes for application of gold and silver, other metals as well, but in general, we're speaking about gold and silver here. But these are the two historical processes that were used in the 19th century. And so we have the gilding of this gold application with mercury. And this was the old-fashioned way of applying gold. And then we will be comparing it or contrasting it with the galvanic process. So basically, in a nutshell, this mercurial gilding, which was very toxic indeed, this was applied in France and Switzerland. Now, in France, it would be banned more or less officially by 1830. However, it did continue to be used, this mercurial process, past this date, and this was sporadic. However, this galvanic process would slowly overtake this mercurial application of gold. And now we will discuss the pluses and minuses. So it is to be noted that we see this so-called, these mantle clocks, which are so-called bronze doré or ormalu. Now, this is the old-fashioned gilding technology, and this is essentially this gold applied over a bronze or other metallic surface. But we see this a lot in the clocks that we find, these mantle clocks, Louis XVI clocks, etc. But there is a very interesting report I would like to bring to your attention, and this is the comparative safety of gilding by galvanic process versus mercury gilding. So this is a document which is a letter from a Dr. Edouard Sanderet of Besançon to a Monsieur Chevalier, and this was regarding the sanitary advantages of galvanic gilding. This is also called electroplating. So this is where we have this electroplating technology, and this was comparing it with the traditional mercury gilding in horology. And so the key points here, which we should note, are that there's a health risk with the mercury gilding, and this has historically caused severe occupational poisoning among workers in Besançon's watchmaking industry. And the documented effects were included, this is phthisis, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is tuberculosis-like wasting, hydrothorax, enteritis, mercurial tremors, convulsive tongue movements affecting speech, rapid emaciation, and death. Now, records from Besançon showed numerous deaths among gilders over the 1841 to 1844 period. Now, this analysis was published in 1849, so we're mid-century here, but it had already been more or less officially banned, this mercury application, by around 1830. Now, in one workshop alone, they saw 10 to 12 deaths over 12 years. Another report states that there were 13 deaths in 2 years alone, with an additional 9 workers returning to Switzerland in a dying state. A lot of these workers were Swiss specialists that had gone to Besançon, which was sort of the French watchmaking capital, and they brought their arts with them. But now the workers that are going back to Switzerland, to Neuchâtel indeed, They were often attempting self-treatments through sweating exercise or sweat furnaces, these types of cures in Neuchâtel, with mixed but sometimes positive results. So attempted protective measures. Now, with the mercury, they were trying to use a ventilated safety apparatus called the Darcy lantern, or I've also heard this referred to in various other Darcy's forge, this Darcy's furnace, and this was in order to absorb mercury fumes. Now, when correctly built and attached to a strong chimney draft, it reduced the exposure. However, due to poor construction or neglect, workers still regularly became poisoned. So galvanic gilding, or also known as electroplating. This was considered safe, entirely safe for workers. It was initially adopted in Besançon and admired for both health and economic reasons. It fell out of use because of unscrupulous workshops applying very thin, cheap layers of gold, and this led to deterioration during climate change or travel. Now, the practice became distrusted by customers, especially in fine watchmaking. An example in this letter was given of a commercial house received 500,000 francs worth of watches which were returned after gold plating degraded during transport from France to China. So the electroplating was less reliable than the mercury in that the level of gold, it was quite thin, the layer. So, and we'll see this very predominantly in many watches, including Swiss watches, as they would too more or less migrate to this electroplating technology, this plaqué. And we see this during the 1850s and 1870s period as very highly adopted. Now, the situation at the current time, which was the writing of this analysis, was 1849. Despite clear health dangers, mercury gilding remained the dominant method. It's very interesting for watchmaking in Besançon. Even though it had been essentially banned, they were still mainly using this mercurial gilding. Galvanic gilding is mainly used on metals outside horology, mostly in Paris. This is a very interesting side note. Now, the conclusion of this letter, mercury gilding remains extremely hazardous, causing high mortality among workers. Galvanic gilding is healthier and preferable, but commercial distrust and dishonest practices prevent widespread adoption. And that was regarding France. The author hoped his observations would assist public health efforts to protect workers. So we have these interesting notes now, but I would like to read you this letter, and it is going to be something that will bring a lot of minutiae to life regarding this art, and we'll find a lot of these individuals. Now, this exposure to this, it seems, based on the information I've seen, that this could kill relatively quickly. Within 5 to 10 years, a worker could perish because of the mercury exposure. So let us take a moment to pause, and then we will look at our letter in great detail. Okay, so this is our letter from Mr. Sandere. Sir, if I have been somewhat delayed in sending you the information you were kind enough to request from me regarding the present and past health of gilding workers, it is because I was not in circumstances favorable to the promptness you may have expected. I have, in fact, been in Besançon only 4 years. I serve at the hospital only on an interim basis as a substitute professor at the School of Medicine. This is to say, sir, that the information I am about to provide is only very slightly personal to me, and that I have had to gather it from both from watchmaking employers who hire these workers and from physicians who either in the city or in hospitals have in recent years treated sick gilders. Among the new gilding processes, you undoubtedly refer to galvanic gilding. This method indeed presents no drawbacks for the health of workers, and it would be highly desirable if it could be generally adopted. But this process, which some time ago had been used in Besançon and had begun to gain popularity because of its economic and sanitary advantages, has now fallen into complete disrepute. Buyers' distrust has become so great due to abuses made of light gilding that today in watchmaking, almost all pieces are still gilded with mercury. The reproach made of the rules process is that it covers pieces with such a small quantity of gold. I mean at the discretion of the gilders, that time and atmospheric conditions quickly damages the gilding. Thus, serious defects may occur on delicate watch components and sharp edges. This is so true that a very honorable man of Besançon, Mr. H. Vey, who has taken a philanthropic interest in this industry, told me yesterday that a commercial house had received back 500,000 francs worth of watches gilded by the galvanic process, whose journey from France to China had greatly deteriorated them. Besides, sir, more skilled than I in these matters, you know that the causes that can discredit galvanic gilding. Now, I only wished to explain why this process is hardly used in watchmaking. Bad faith has ruined it, like so many other good things. As for gilding on metals other than watch components, I have ascertained that almost all of it is done in Paris. Thus, sir, mercury gilding is still at present the only method generally practiced here. The question then becomes, what benefit have the measures proposed for protecting gilders from poisoning actually provided? I know of only one, the lantern apparatus devised by Monsieur d'Arsay, I believe. This device has rendered and is still renders unquestionable service, properly constructed and connected to a chimney with good draft. It clearly absorbs mercurial vapors and therefore the sources of poisoning. However, I know that tremors have nevertheless appeared in some workers using this device, even when it seemed well arranged. Unfortunately, it is true that this apparatus is often insufficient due to the construction defects to protect gilders from deadly harm. They then fall again, though to a lesser degree, into all of the disorders caused by mercury absorption. And these disorders are numerous and extremely serious. I would have wished, sir, to determine the exact number of gilding workers and to compare it with the number of the sick and the dead. Such work, difficult in itself, would require much time, and I believed you were eager to gather materials without delay. What I can affirm on reliable testimony is that mercury gilding, as practiced 15 or 20 years ago, is one of the most fatal occupations to health. In my youth, I knew a Swiss family who came to Besançon to practice this very lucrative trade. And within 12 years, I saw at least 10 or 12 workers of both sexes die in that workshop. The head of the workshop, whose profits spared him from sustained labor, died himself at the fairly advanced age of 65, but with mercurial tremor. I saw these facts myself. They impressed me deeply. Dr. Janssen, physician of the Bellevaux Hospice and also responsible for recording deaths in the city of Besançon, provided me with a note which I transcribed. The deaths of gilding workers excluding those who died in hospital. In 1841, Henri Perret died of consumption. Charlotte Nicolet, hydrothorax. Virginie Joly, consumption. Lydie Montandon, wife of Calam, consumption and tremor. Françoise Moine, consumption and tremor. 1842, Julie Bernard, consumption, worked in gilding with her daughter. Jules Bousset, severe illness, his mother was a gilder. Henriette Robert, widow of Calam, died at 83, had long suffered tremors. 1843, Pierrette Bousset, enteritis and tremor. Justine Rodolphe, consumption. 1844, Jean-Baptiste Biquel, mason turned gilder, with his wife, chest disease and tremor. Finally, Mr. H. Vey, whom I mentioned above, told me that from his investigations into the dangers of this profession, there had been 13 deaths of gilding workers in Besançon within 2 years, and 9 others had returned to Switzerland in desperate condition. Even allowing for an overlap in these counts, given the small number of gilders, the proportion is enormous. This proportion would be even higher if workers warned by experience did not reduce their working times themselves, interrupting work for several days or working only half days and devoting the rest to what amounts to treatment. Forced walks producing heavy sweating, baths, and other care that somewhat reduces their grim prospects. It is unnecessary to say that the hazards are vary according to the specific operations performed. Preparation of the gold, brightening, firing, operations you know better than I, produce understandable differences in outcomes. To consumption, wasting, enteritis, and tremor, I must add another symptom associated with the last, convulsive-like movements of the tongue, which I have observed and which give speech a particular character. I should add a fact you likely know. Many poison gilders go to Neuchâtel for treatment, reportedly with numerous successes. The patients are placed in a heated chamber to provoke extremely abundant sweating. After some time, they need only restore their strength through a substantial diet. This treatment is rational. It is essentially what gilders traditionally attempted themselves through the Neuchâtel method, though the Neuchâtel method is more systematic. There would be much more to consider regarding local hygienic conditions and other factors in Besançon, but that would require a full treatise. I fear these details may already seem long to you, sir, who no doubt have better data than I can offer. I wished only to show my goodwill and readiness to assist any work concerning worker health. I do not have the honor of being known to you, nor do I know in what capacity you addressed me, but your respected name and the subject, the health of workers, were sufficient to ensure my diligence. Please accept, sir, the assurance of my distinguished consideration, Edouard Sanderet, M.D. Now, this is very fascinating material that we've been provided with. Now, I actually did review the individuals listed here genealogically, and I find their desks, I find exactly who they were. These were generally Swiss expats that went to Besançon. Some of them had been already in situ in Besançon, but they had Swiss roots. And this is a short list because even there, some of them that were working together, families, a mother and daughter, we find the, not even in this list, but following in death within a year. So this was extremely hazardous profession. And we do find these individuals. Now, there, as I mentioned, we do have a Montandon horologist here, this Lydie Montandon, wife of Calam. And this is quite interesting this certainly brought my attention. Now, we do find a variety of occupations by the family, and this individual is indeed Lydie Olympe Montandon, and she lived between 1807 and she died in 1841. Ouvrière en horologerie à Besançon. She was a worker in this, a gilding, or gilder, essentially, in this atelier in Besançon that was providing these gilding services. And she was married to un Jean Calam of Le Locle. And so I have been able to identify this individual within the family. But this is an example of this level of professional, and we see how short the lifespans are. Lydie Olympe, she lived 34 years, and she probably was involved in this for about 12 to 15 years. So this was her only profession, most likely. But we also have the opportunity to view watch from this period that this is a gold watch, 14 karat watch, and we can see now. I suspect that this may have been already a watch that was made through the electroplating. It's not entirely clear. We do see the state. Now, I've seen watches in much worse state. Indeed, the entire surface is almost pitted, or in general, it is very thin. So this may still be a mercurial process. I can provide close-ups for this. And this is a watch by Henri Montandon, signed Genève, or Geneva. And this is most certainly Charles Henri, the son of Louis Auguste, and they were actually located in La Chaux-de-Fonds. But as a marketing ploy, Geneva was generally a signing location which would sell the watches, especially in the United States. But we see the type of quality. Now, these were very beautiful watches, and this may be still a mercurial. I should make a comparison with later watches from later in the middle of the 19th century. This is certainly in the 1840s, but this may be the earlier method, which was even thicker. But there is, in general, with the galvanic period, the electroplating or plaqué, we see there is a much thinner, almost pitted surface. So it's almost as if there's a patina of some kind on the metal. But, and I will give inside view so that the movement can be seen. Now, in many cases, the case itself of the pocket watch will be another metal, for example, copper. And this is then galvanized, or this galvanic, this electroplating is done on top of the other metal, and we have a 14 karat watch with this finishing. However, we do have this rather interesting gold application, these various different, both the mercurial, the older version, and then the electroplating or galvanizing. So I hope this provides a little bit of background on how the precious metal was applied to these cases, and how dangerous this was for the watchmakers involved in that art, as this would have been a specialization, that this atelier would have been only making gilding, and they would have done it for a watchmaker who was fabricating watches as an établisseur, or perhaps a company. But this was a subcontracting service where this atelier would make these projects and then forward them to the up the chain in the établissage system. So I hope that this was a useful video, and that if you have any questions about this technology, please submit them in the comments as always, or feel free to subscribe, like, and share. If you have anything you would like to contribute, I would love to hear from you. But thank you for your attention, and I hope this was informative. Thank you, and good night.